So I just came from the grocery store and I went to a grocery store in a bad neighborhood, which never ends well. But I ended up buying these really cheap peanut butter, get this, fudge enrobed cookies. ENROBED, enrobed. That marketing team, they get an A+ smiley face for the day. So I'm checking out and I turn around and the old timer behind me in line, who looks like one step away from death, he's wearing a New Orleans Saints hoodie, a really nice New Orleans Saints hoodie. And I said, "You poor bastard." I said, "I've been a Saints fan since '84. And he looks up at me and in the heaviest Creole accent, he comes back with something like, I think he said, "I got you beat, brother." 1967, I went to the first game at Tulane Stadium. New Orleans won the toss, elected to receive, and ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown for the first play in the history of the organization. Long pause. And then the guy says, "And then I had to wait 43 years for something positive to happen." And I said, "I feel you. Being a Saints fan is hard. It's like waiting for good YouTube photography channels." Just kidding. Just kidding. Calm down, for crap's sake. I had a dream last night. I was in a third world country, and the country will remain nameless, and it's a place I've never been. But I was in a third world country, and I was in some sort of compound. And the compound had 2 stories above ground and 1 story below ground, but the below ground floor had an open section that was open to street level. So even if you were down on the bottom floor, which is where I was, and you looked up, there was these clear plexiglass walls, and on the outside was street level. And for some reason, this angry mob started coming at our compound, and they were throwing rocks and breaking all the windows. And I was down in the basement level looking up through this plexiglass, and the plexi was covered with this green film, almost the color of my beautiful shirt. And the silhouettes that were happening on the other side of it were fantastic. It was like people like this with their arms back and throwing. And in my dream, I was like, "Hey, dumbass, this bag was with me in the dream. And inside the bag is the Nikon ZF, the camera that I'm using right now." And I was like, "Dumbass, you should maybe take a picture of that. That's pretty amazing," right? And it wasn't like terrifying yet. So I started shooting and I'm looking at these pictures and I'm like, these pictures are good. This is like the kind of crap that wins World Press Photo. Like in my dream, I figured things would go sideways. I would end up like Rambo. Whatever happened in the dream, I would be the superstar. And the side story would be, I win World Press. Like I save everyone and I win World Press, because it is my dream, right? It's an action adventure dream, and typically in those dreams, I'm the most badass of all badasses. So I make these pictures and then the mob leaves, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I think it's approximately 5:30 in the morning. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm still in the dream. And then the mob comes back, and the mob is, now they're armed, and they're all dudes and they're pissed. And they're coming, and I look at my situation and I'm like, I'm in this bottom floor. There is nothing down here. There is no escape route. It's bare walls and a stairwell, and I got 100 ticked off dudes with AKs and M4s and everything else coming down the stairwell. And in my dream, I just like imploded. I just realized, this is it. This is it, man. There's no plan B here. I'm screwed. Like, I don't know where anybody else is. Maybe they escaped and I'm the last one in here, and it's not good. And that little devil in my shoulder in my dream like turned around and grabbed my neck and said, "Wake up, you idiot," which I did, and it was 6 a.m. spot on. There's absolutely no reason other than me for me telling you this, other than the fact that I wanted to wake up at 6 a.m. And I totally pussed out in my dream. I didn't fight everybody off. I wasn't Rambo. I think I left my camera bag behind, so I didn't win World Press. There was nothing positive that came out of it, other than the fact I didn't die in real life. Speaking of dying in real life, so I got my wife so ticked off at me the other day, and I want to share with you what I did, because maybe you can deploy this on your spouse. So I can get my wife riled up so fast and so easy. And even after 27 or 28 years, she doesn't realize I'm doing it. And in my head, I think she has to know that I'm doing this on purpose. And she never does. And so it works 100% of the time. It works 80% of the time. She has, my relationship with technology is bad. And hers is equally bad, but in silly ways. And every time something goes wrong with her and technology, I sing a little jingle that goes something like, old people in technology. And then she gets mad because I'm basically saying you're too old to figure out what you're doing. And that doesn't help, right? That ratchets her up to level 1, right? But I want level 5. I want a thermonuclear meltdown. And so when she syncs her phone with iCloud, it duplicates everything in iCloud onto her phone a second time. So if she erased all her contacts on the phone and synced with iCloud, it would be fine. But then she syncs a second time and it puts a duplicate of everything on. You sync a third time, you're gonna get a third set. So she's like, I can't believe this and blah, blah, blah. And she goes to T-Mobile and that's like just slamming your head against a barbed wire fence all day long. And so she's like, comes home and she's like ranting and I'm thinking, perfect opportunity. She's already close. So I said, old people in technology. And then she gets, really, really kind of ticked about that. And so I was like, what can I do to push her over the edge? So she's going through her database, starting at the A's, and she's naming people to figure out whether or not she should keep them in her database. And I'm like, in my head, I didn't say this, but in my head, I'm like, you're out of your mind. That is so 1985 behavior. So what I did was every time she named a person, I said, oh, that person's dead. And she was like, no, they're not. And I go, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're dead. No, you idiot. I just saw him on Facebook. He's in Bora Bora. I go, no, I think he died 2 days ago. And she would just go berserk. And again, I'm thinking she's going to catch on. She's going to know that I'm doing this on purpose. Next person. Oh, what about Mary Smith? Should I keep Mary Smith? Mary Smith died. She's dead. She loses it. I get her at one point screaming at the top of her lungs, the cloud, the cloud, the cloud, in that heavy Boston accent. So it doesn't sound like cloud. It sounds like cloud, cloud. And I was like, I feel fulfilled as a human being. I feel like now I've accomplished something in life. I've gotten my wife to that point. I don't know how you feel about that, but if you want to do that to your spouse, it works. Okay, I'm making this film because I'm departing from YouTube. Not a big shocker here. I've been talking about this for a couple weeks, but there's a lot of I got a lot of weird questions about it, and I think there's a lot of people who think I'm disappearing off the face of the earth, which is not the case. And I wanted to explain something because maybe there's a kernel of some nugget of some thing, of some object in what I'm about to say that might be beneficial to you schlubs out there. I don't know. So if you want to just listen to the next 30 seconds and then stop this film, the crux of the pitch is something called environmental mastery. Now, a couple of weeks ago, environmental mastery is a term I've been familiar with for a long time, but I went to a lecture a couple of weeks ago by a guy named Chip. It's either Chip Conley or Chip Conway. I should know this because I went to his lecture, but I don't remember. Chip Conway, you might have seen him on Rich Roll. You might have seen him on Oprah. He was a guy that was a hotelier in California. He owned more hotels than anybody else in California, but his personal life was a disaster zone. And it was a disaster zone. And what he said in his lecture was he was driving to the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge to commit suicide. And a friend called him and kind of talked him out of it. And he lost his partner. He got diagnosed with cancer, all kinds of stuff, right? His life's kind of at rock bottom. So he gets rid of all the hotels. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do. And he ends up, the guys who founded Airbnb said, hey, will you be a mentor for us? Can we hire you to sort of be a mentor inside the office? This one, Airbnb was first starting out. And he's like, okay. And then at some point in that process, they start referring to him as the modern elder. And he's kind of like, I'm not really sure I'm cool with that term. And he's like, when you think about the word midlife, what is the number one word that is associated with the term midlife? And within half a second, someone in the crowd says crisis. He said, yeah, crisis. But humans are living a lot longer than they used to. So conceivably, if you retired at 60 years old or 65 years old, you might have another 30 years of your life ahead of you, which in the past was not the case. And he said there's not really a whole lot of training for people who are at that demographic moving forward. And so he founded something called the Modern Elder Academy, which is in Baja, California. But he's opening 2 branches here in Santa Fe. One will open in May. It's a huge campus out in Cerrillos. And then there is another one that is actually on the campus where Santa Fe Workshops, Photo Workshops is right now. And they're going to move somewhere else. And that's going to become the second sort of location for Modern Elder Academy. But Chip mentioned environmental mastery. And I was like, oh, that's what's exactly happening with me. So one of the most amazing things about getting older is your sense of environmental mastery becomes more refined. And there's a lot of complicated ways to look at environmental mastery, and there's some very simple ways, and I want to stick with simple. And that is, what are you good at, what do you love, and what environments promote those 2 first things? What do you love, what are you good at, and what environments do you thrive in? That's in essence what environmental mastery is, and knowing what those are. And for me, it is very clear, and I knew this going in, that YouTube is not a place, it is not an environment that I want to be around. I don't view YouTube as a fun place. I don't view it as a healthy place. And I mentioned this before. The only real benefit to me for YouTube is community. It was building community. Last night, I got an email from someone who I had emailed with a couple of years ago. He's a photographer that lives in the central part of the US. And he was, last year, he was like, hey, I'm coming through Santa Fe. I know you from your YouTube channel. You're going to be around. I said, no, I'm not. I'm gone. He emailed me this time and said, hey, I'm coming through Santa Fe with a buddy of mine. We're both photographers. We're on a road trip, blah, blah, blah. You going to be around? I said, yeah, I'm around. You know, meet me at this new brewery downtown. So we went there last night and hung out with them. And as we were walking away, I was talking to him about that. I said, the benefit of YouTube is this. It's you and I getting together. The rest of it is unhealthy to me. It's not a place that I want to be around. I don't find it particularly fun. And I made some notes here so I would not lose my place, which is, I don't know, maybe something I'm prone to do. The number one thing I have is what a lot of people don't seem to realize or they forget, and it's not a malicious thing, it's an innocent thing, is I have a full-time job. I work full-time for Blurb. And I don't think, I know, it's not that I don't think, I know that what I do for Blurb is mostly completely is misunderstood by the vast majority of people. Somebody said to me yesterday, well, I know your job at Blurb is just making books. And I was like, no. That's not. That's not even 1% of my job at Blurb. So my job at Blurb is what I would say multifaceted. And I'll just give you a little brief snapshot. So I'm on the hook to produce an 8-film series for Blurb. Okay, that in itself, think about that. 8 films. They're up to 10 minutes long each. They're all with on a specific theme, a specific story. You'll know more about this later if you're following the Blurb YouTube channel. There won't be anything about this on my channel, but it'll all be on Blurb's YouTube thing. So I have 8 films I have to produce for them. I write an email campaign series for them. I work with the marketing team. I work with sometimes the product team. I sometimes work with the CS team. I do all kinds of different things. I'm in and out of meetings. I'm talking, my boss is the marketing director. We talk, we plan, we scheme. I have at least 1 trip a month for the next 6 months, and some of those trips are domestic, some are international, and some of the international trips go from one country to the next, to the next, to the next. There's oftentimes an event every single day. We're producing content. What I'm saying is it's complicated, it's labor intensive, it's a ton of work. And so that is what I do primarily in my life. I've said it many times before. YouTube was never more than about 5% of my life. And it never will be as long as I have this job. There is just simply not enough time to do both. Number 2, I had no intention of ever being a YouTuber when I started on YouTube. The other day I was looking at my channel and it said something like, you know, Dan Milner signed up for YouTube in 2010. And I was like, that's impossible. I didn't sign up in 2010. Turns out, I think I did sign up in 2010, but I didn't really use the channel until 10 years later, which should tell you all you need to know about my YouTube goals and aspirations. I didn't have any goals and aspirations. I don't want to be a YouTuber. I never did. Number 3, I'm going to break YouTube into 2 categories. Yeah, man, rock on. 2 categories. I still haven't eaten this yet. This is, did I mention that this is enrobed in fudge? It is. When I break YouTube into 2 categories, category 1, I need to fix the float on my toilet. There is a guy out there that has your toilet and your float and has done a most amazing how-to video on how to fix the float on your toilet. That guy is a gem. That guy is not trying to get famous. That guy is doing everyone else in the world with that toilet and that float. He's doing them a solid, no pun intended. And I love YouTube for that. It's amazing. What I don't love YouTube for is around the photography circles. And here's why. It feels like half of what I see from the photography side is a grift. And I've never been someone who likes grifting, and I don't tolerate grifting. It's like the kind of used car salesman. And by the way, there's plenty of good car salesmen out there, but there's also the kind of car salesman, and we all know who I'm talking about, where you set foot on the dealership lot and this jackass comes out of the building and knows nothing of the brand, knows nothing of the cars in front of them, but is like, oh, you like that car? You want to go in, talk to my boss, get the paperwork started? You want to go? You want to go now? You want that hard sell moron that seems to always permeate the car lots. That's kind of what I feel a lot of photography on YouTube is, this like grift. It's either I'm going to shill equipment and get you to sign up, and I'm going to grift you on this equipment and tell you that this is good and you need it, and then tomorrow there's going to be a new piece of stuff. Or it's like grifting about what the overall photography is like in general. And again, it's not something that I just want to be around. A lot of people don't have any problem with that. I look at the grift. To me, the photography is like the minor leagues of grift on YouTube. When you look at guys like Russell Brand, for example. Like Russell Brand, when I lived in LA, I used to go to his TV show live. And Russell Brand was like a lefty libtard, man. He was far left. And actually, I think Russell Brand, the real Russell Brand, is a pretty intelligent guy that actually has some independent thought going on up there. I think literally, at least he was back then. And he was funny. Forgetting Sarah Marshall was, I think, the first time that I was really like, oh, he can act. Like, he's a decent actor, and he's funny, and he's, super British, and I love that. And he was like a lefty, total left guy. And he was when he hit YouTube. And then apparently, and I'm guessing this, I don't know Russell Brand, but apparently, and I'm guessing maybe the views weren't there. So he did what a lot of photography YouTubers or really successful YouTubers do. He reinvented himself as a guru. And that lasted for a while, and I guess maybe that wasn't panning out either, and now he's a absolutely crazy right-wing clickbait guy. And if you know anything about him, you realize that what he's doing now is just grifting for views and subs and likes and ad money. And so when I think about YouTube, that's the kind of person that I think of. I love the toilet guy. Like I said, I think of the toilet guy and I'm like, love you, man. Everything else, you can have it. And I find, here's the thing, when you're on YouTube and you're making YouTube, and this could be point 4 for all I know. When you are on YouTube, it's very easy to get hooked into YouTube and to watch things that you have absolutely no reason to watch. And my guess is 99.999% of you are doing the same thing. You are watching stuff that you have no reason to watch. That is the beauty of these platforms. I've said this from day one. The most destructive weapon I have ever seen deployed on the professional photography scene was Instagram. Instagram hit like a thermonuclear bomb in the middle of the professional industry because Instagram worked on the chemical process inside some of the most egotistical, competitive, insecure people on the planet. And it took a lot of really good people and turned them into really bad photographers. That's what Instagram did. YouTube, you could argue, is even worse because of the length of the content and consequently the length of time wasted on YouTube. That's weird. It said recording interrupted. I mentioned this last week that I almost watched a 1991 comparison of the 5 best SUVs on the market in 1991. Why on earth would I ever watch that now? So the point is, I don't do that anymore. So when I made this decision to go away from YouTube, anytime I think that I'm gonna do YouTube, I read. And by the way, if you haven't read Blowback, this is the second book. The guy's first book was unreal. By the way, it was called, damn it. What was the first book called? He wrote it, it was called A Warning, and he wrote it as an anonymous author. And then he outed himself and had to go into hiding while he was writing this one. It's pretty good. I also have Michael Mann's new book, Heat 2, which I'm very excited to read. I don't do YouTube stuff anymore. Anytime, and in 2012 when I deleted social media, this is the same thing I did. I basically said, okay, anytime my brain says go to YouTube, at that point it was go to Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, all that. I said, I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna read. And the first year I read 80 books. And I was like, okay, this seems like a good idea. So I'm doing that now as well. Point number 5 is I can't do two things at once. I can't make films and make stills at the same time and do either one of those things particularly well. And I know that. I've known it for a long time, but a couple of weeks ago, I went out in the field to shoot stills, and then my wife was like, you should be making footage of this, you can use this, and then I spent, like I think I mentioned this before, I had an hour to shoot. I spent 50 minutes screwing around trying to film and 10 minutes photographing and made no photographs of note whatsoever. And I'm driving home from that, I was like, what am I doing? This is the dumbest thing in the world. And here's the thing, it's not just me. Someone sent me a link to a film that from a person I've never heard of. And the film started out, it was a YouTube film, and it is absolutely incredible. The filming, the footage, the color grading, the camera work, the motion. It looks as good or better than anything I have ever seen on Netflix or Amazon Prime or in the theater. I was like, this looks like a feature film, and somehow some YouTuber pulled this off. And the dude had the trendy hat. He had all the right tattoos. He had the trendy clothing. He had the drone footage. He had the unbelievable locations. And it was all like, this is the coolest, it's about this and this technology and this technology. And then the photograph, old buildings. It's just another old building. And I was like, good grief, no one can do it. No one can make motion and shoot great stills at the same time. If that dude, and by the way, he's not the guy that you might be thinking of. He's not the super famous guy who has the tats and the jewelry and does amazing films. That guy deserves a lot of credit. He's like the photo version of Casey Neistat. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a guy I've never heard of, never seen before in my life, and his footage was unbelievable. And again, his still photography was not good. It just was not good. And I was like, if that guy can't do it, like, cause I can't come close to making a decent film. So I'm not even gonna try. So like, if that guy can make a decent film, what apparently he can't do is make that film and make good stills at the same time. And I was like, it just reinforced my point of like, I don't wanna do two things at once. So what am I gonna do? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and continue to use my shifter.media site. This site I've had for years. I love this site. When I think about the site, it's nothing but positive feelings. It is my site. I have two folks behind the scenes who have helped me from the inception of that. That's Fleming and Charlene. They're awesome. Without them, I'd be hovering and cuddled in the dirt under this table right now, useless. They're the ones that sort of implement all of my misguided ideas and translate them into workable things on the site. So there's going to be a couple of changes to the site that are going to make it a little bit easier to use. I wonder why. I wonder if this is overheating or it's just because I don't have any card left or something. Anyway, I got to get through this in a hurry. I don't know why I'm shooting 4K. So I'm going to double down on the website, and I'm also going to deploy my newsletter. So stay tuned for the newsletter if you want to sign up for that. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be. It's going to be simple and basic at first, and then it will get better. And the films that I do make will be hosted on Vimeo, and they will be only viewable on Shifter. So that if you want to know where I'm at, what I'm doing, what I'm interested in, it's all going to be on Shifter. It's not going to be on YouTube. If you look at the posts that I've done over the past couple of days, the last post I did about documentary photography versus street photography, that's the kind of thing I'm going to be posting about. But I'm also going to be posting about a lot of things that are outside of your comfort zone, because my subliminal plan is to make you better human beings. And that means a wider range of content than just talking about nuts and bolts of photography. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. I hope that makes sense. I've got 20 seconds left. I don't know if I'm out of card space or I'm out of battery or whatever, but this is another perfect example of why Dan has no business being on YouTube.